Hey guys, today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome, when it should be something that you are worried about and when we need to think about just some general inexperience. So first of all, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is that feeling that you have no idea what you're doing, that everybody else knows what they're doing and you don't, that you're trying to sell yourself as something that you are not. And that can happen a lot when you are starting a new venture, for example, starting a new copywriting business. You know, you can be, for example, you can be a CCA student, you can be in the group, and you can be learning, and you can be practicing, and you can be pitching clients, and you can maybe even be talking to clients, but even in spite of all of the practice you've done, the portfolio that you built, the spec ads you've done, you could still secretly feel like you have no idea what you're doing. That's unfortunately sometimes part of the game. That's sometimes part of getting outside of your comfort zone, taking those steps to grow your comfort zone, to get to that next level in your professional skills. There is that element of I don't know what I'm doing, they're gonna find out I know what I'm doing. That, of course, is your resistance kicking up, and before jumping to I don't want to say assumption, but before listening to what your brain is saying, because one of those things we talk about, right? What's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, don't believe everything you think. Just because your brain is saying it to you does not mean that it's true. So your brain can be saying, oh my God, you have no idea what you're doing, you're gonna fail at this, is gonna be terrible, you're an imposter, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not going to be something that is necessarily true. The big thing to keep in mind is that your brain is going to be kicking up all kinds of different things to try to get you to stay in your comfort zone. And imposter syndrome is going to be one of those big ones. So again, there's that element of don't believe everything that you think. Because when you look back on the fact that you have practiced, you've done the work, you have refined your work, you've done the action sheets in the group, you have interacted in the Facebook group, you've created spec ads, all that kind of stuff. You do know how to write copy. You're afraid, and that's natural. But that does not mean that you're an imposter, even if this is your first project, your first gig, you've never done anything like it before, working for clients before, you still likely know a lot more than your clients do about copy. And that means that you have a lot of value that you can bring to the interaction. You have a lot to offer. So I want you to keep that in mind. Remember that you're not writing copy, you're not writing copy for an expert copywriter. Or if you do, maybe they're going to give you feedback. Maybe that's part of the deal. But you're not writing copy for an expert copywriter. So you have a lot to bring to the table. If you've been doing the practice, if you've been doing the work, if you've been honing your skills, if you've been learning, then you're not an imposter. It doesn't mean you're an expert, but you're not an imposter. You're just a little bit earlier in your copywriting journey. You are a little bit, you're not as experienced as other copywriters, but that doesn't mean that you're a complete imposter. Now, I do want to say though that you do have to know what you're doing, right? You can't. We kind of say a lot that you can't just one day decide you're going to be a copywriter and then start taking clients. In that scenario, quite honestly, I'm sorry, hair in my eye now, that would be an imposter, right? If you don't actually know how to write copy yet, then you're trying to get clients, or you're taking clients, then that actually would be an imposter scenario, right? If you don't know how to write copy, you can purchase our course, that's great. But if you haven't done the practice, and if you haven't done the work, and if you haven't interacted in the group and given feedback and gotten feedback and honed your skills, then you don't know how to write copy yet. And that would be the scenario, in which case they say, well, actually, that might be an example of being quote unquote, an imposter. There is absolutely an element, I hate saying that fake it till you make it, because that's not what it's about. It's so much more about when you've been practicing, when you've been in the CCA and you've been practicing and doing that work, when you have those foundational elements, sometimes the client will say, okay, well, do you know how to write email funnels? And you might say, you know what, I absolutely do, because you do. Maybe you just have to go back and go through the email funnel course in the CCA again. Maybe you need to go back and brush up on that. So sometimes it's can you do this? And you go, yes, I can. And then you go back and you come back to the group and go, okay, any tips? Where do I find this in the course? That kind of thing. So I guess there is that kind of, I really don't like that fake it till you make it, because you're not faking it. You're just saying, yes, I know that I'm capable of doing this, so yes, I will take this project. Whereas it's a little bit different when you have that you know how to do it, you just haven't done it yet. So that's a little bit of nerves. But when you don't actually, when someone doesn't actually know how to write copy yet, hasn't actually learned copywriting, or hasn't actually done any of the practice or any of that kind of thing, then that would be the one scenario in which case I would say that actually that kind of would be being an imposter, right? Because if you haven't learned how to do it, then really, I mean, let's be honest, someone who doesn't know how to write copy yet has no business selling copywriting, the same way that someone who doesn't know how to rewire a house has no business selling their electrical services. As a client, if you found out that your electrician had never done anything with electricity at all, you wouldn't be happy about that, right? Right. And it's the same thing with copywriting. A client expects you to have a level of understanding. They don't expect you to have extreme mastery. They don't expect that you are the best of the best of the best, and as good as we get will never be perfect, but they do expect you to know how to write copy and to bring your expertise to the table and to bring a lot of value to the table in your interaction with them. So that scenario would be the one time in which I say, maybe in that case, not even maybe, but in that case, if you don't know how to write copy and you're selling your copywriting skills, then yeah, you are an imposter. But for all the rest of us, for our students, for the people who are learning copywriting, if you're doing the work, you're doing the practice, you're honing your skills, when you're sitting down with the client, yeah, you may feel that imposter syndrome. You may feel nervous. You may feel like, oh, I'm not sure I can do this, but you have the skills to do the work for them, and you have value to offer. And that is what you need to stay focused on. When that resistance starts kicking up, when those fears start kicking up, focus on the fact that you have value to offer this client, and you can help them improve their business, help them meet their goals, all of that kind of thing. You can benefit your client, and that's what you need to stay focused on. Whenever you're in your head about, oh, I don't know if I can do this, stop making it about you. Make it about what you can do for your client and how you can help them. That's a really great way to overcome those internal fears and overcome imposter syndrome as a whole. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I hope that maybe cleared up some things, maybe inspired you to take some steps you didn't think maybe you were ready to take yet. And especially if you're feeling imposter syndrome at all, know that it's not unnatural. It's not something I've never heard of before. In fact, a lot of people feel it. So it's not just you, but that shouldn't be any excuse to keep yourself from moving forward.